This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so thanks for joining us. This is the VHSP Homelessness Special Needs Housing Collaborative Application, How to Apply webinar. For anyone who's on the call, this application is in year 2 funding. So at this time, we will not be accepting new applications from applicants that are not currently funded by this funding. So it is a small pot of people who are eligible to apply for this funding. A new application will come out same time next year, and we will be able to have new applicants at that time. But right now, we are only accepting applications from those who are currently funded. So I'm going to go pretty quickly through this. It is a very short application with it being a renewal year. And so we're going to go through all of the pieces like we would any other application and leave time for questions. But I'm hoping it won't take you guys a whole ton of time as the timeline for this application is very short. All right, so just a few housekeeping. If you could stay muted just to limit distractions. Any time that you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll have time at the end for Q&A. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, this will be recorded and posted on our website for you to view later on. Just a big disclaimer that we always give to all of our applications. This is just a general overview to our local COC process. Any specific questions about what's eligible, not eligible, it is on the applicant to read all of the accompanying documents for this funding to make sure that you are following the HSNH guidelines and any related requirements. All of the materials for that information are posted on our website on our funding page, as well as on DHCD's pages for VHSP. So just a little bit about HSNH funding in general, that this is funding to support a homelessness response system through coordinated community-based activities. And basically the whole purpose of this fund is to assist households experiencing homelessness to quickly regain stability in permanent housing and to prevent future households becoming homeless altogether. So you'll see through this funding, it's our most robust funding and funds the most robust types of activities. And then it's really about supporting each of those pieces that work together to create a full system. So a little bit about the VHSP funding. There are 5 key projects that are able to be funded for folks in the community. Coordinated assessment, street outreach, targeted prevention, shelter operations, and rapid rehousing. I think in particular, as you're thinking about putting in an application, you do have to keep in mind that there is a 25% match requirement for these funds. The flexible thing about the VHSP funds is that 25% match could be in kind or cash, and it does not have to go directly to the line item that you receive funds in, but has to support the overall system. So what that means is if you get funding through VHSP for emergency shelter operations, but you have some local dollars that actually goes towards a street outreach project. Even though you don't receive VHSP funding for that line item, those can still be counted as match as long as they're not counted for another grant as match. And we can help walk you through your match and make sure that you have what you need to meet that requirement, but there is some flexibility in the way that you think about your match. So just a general overview of funding like we do any other time. This is probably not news to any of you, but GWRC is the COC lead agency and therefore serves as the collaborative applicant. Agencies are not able to apply for VHSP funding outside of a collaborative process. And so all grantees must go through the COC local process in order to receive funding for these sources. Basic funding eligibility, just so you guys know, the fact that you're already a grantee means that you meet them, but just to reiterate, so that you continue to meet our eligibilities, you do have to be a member of the COC, and then you have to adhere to the COC coordinated entry policies and procedures, which means that you are housing first, you participate in our coordinated entry process. For DEV, it means that you mirror our process, and then you adhere to project standards that we've outlined. Those are posted on our website. And then you collect information through HMIS or for DV, a comparable database. Like any other funding applications, you do have to meet the eligibility requirements for that funding agency. Some documents to help you through your process. We do have funding policies and procedures, which actually outlines how our process will go, even though we will put those here for you. How you actually ask for seeking letters of support, and what our review and ranking and selection process looks like. So if you ever have any questions, that's a great place to start. If you still can't find what you need, you can reach out to Erica and I, and we'd be happy to help with those. The other thing that we use is policy priorities. These are programmatic considerations that the COC board has approved at the beginning of the year that actually helps guide how funding decisions are made and where our priorities as a COC lie. Both of these documents are available on our website and can be referenced at any time during your application process. So general overview of the funding process. From here, we will go into details about what it means for this process, and I will walk you through how to actually go about applying. So first of all, there is a notice of funding and applications and scoring sheets are released. Those are available on our website. You would have found those by finding this webinar. Right now, those are in draft form as the COC board is meeting on Thursday to approve those. Right now, I don't expect any changes to those, so you should feel good and confident about filling out those applications. Project applications are required to be received by our deadline. Any late applications are not considered for funding. From there, funding performance will review and score all project applications. They then make a determination together about whether or not they accept or reject each application and determine an amount for funding. So even though you apply for funding doesn't mean necessarily that you will receive all that you have requested. The funding performance committee actually makes recommendations for what that will look like. Projects are ranked in the order of priority for funding, and you are notified of what those outcomes are, and we always have an appeals process. So if for some reason you feel like you've been unfairly ranked, your rank doesn't demonstrate what it should, or there was some unfair process to our review process, then you can submit an appeals. They will determine whether or not your appeals is an eligible appeal and then make a determination from there. I think in particular what's important is things like, I feel like I should have got more money. Just because I feel like I should have got more money is not an eligible appeal, but actually something to do with the legitimacy of the process and the way in which projects were scored are eligible appeals. There is an entire appeals document available on the funding page of our website that will outline what's an eligible appeal and what is not, and how you actually go about creating an appeal. Once appeals are closed, the funding outcome applications are submitted and posted to our website for public review. COC board reviews the final outcome, approves it, and then we submit it to the actual funder. So for you guys, what you need to know is the local applications are submitted through the GWRC's grant platform, which we'll go over. And the deadline for submission for your project applications is May 1st at noon. Again, late applications will not be accepted or considered. Please know that the submit button does no longer show up on the grant platform after noon on May 1st. So please be very careful that you are submitting and submitting early, not to run into any technical issues. If you need technical assistance on your application, would like for COC staff to review them, provide you with data, or any general assistance, we can be reached Monday through Friday between 9 and 5:30, and we're happy to help in any way that we can. The best place to put any application questions or assistance requests is our funding email, which is funding@fredericksburgcoc.org. All right, I'm gonna pause for questions momentarily if anyone has any, but I am gonna pull up the local NOFA that has our timeline. I'm gonna show you how to walk through all of that information. Okay. Hoping you guys can see this. This is what our local NOFA looks like, and it provides you all of the background information that you need in order to have a thorough understanding of what you're applying for. In particular, the first thing you always see in our local notice of funding is information on what you're actually applying for. So this explains to you that this is renewal for year 2 of VHSP funding. VHSP funding is always on a 2-year cycle. The first year we ask for what we need. The state gives us an amount, and that is the amount that follows us into year 2 as we make funding decisions. So in particular, the COC is not accepting any new project applications for funding. Only grantees that are currently receiving year 1 VHSP funding are eligible to apply. Any additional information that you need on the VHSP programs is available, and we have some links here for you guys to find those things. We provide some basic information about eligibility requirements. Again, if you weren't eligible, you wouldn't be receiving funding right now, so that's not something that you should have to worry about. Estimated funding. This is a little bit different than it has been in the past. So we are accepting applications up to the $898,743 in renewal funding. That may be a little bit more, and we can go into details about what that looks like, but this is at least how much we're expecting to be able to allocate to projects. The things that you're able to apply for are street outreach, centralized and coordinated assessment, targeted prevention, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, HMIS, and administrative costs. I think in particular, this is a really helpful when it comes to renewals for applicants to read and read clearly. Is applicants are eligible to apply for renewal funding in each category up to the amount allocated in their organization in that category in year 1. And those were approved by the board. We can provide you with those amounts if you need them, but those are also available on our website. The amounts needed for programming above and beyond those renewal amounts will be asked for in expansion. So in your application, you'll see 2 columns, one for a renewal, one for an expansion. Anything that's above your year 1 request goes in the expansion. Renewals and expansions for the same project can be applied in the same application. You are also able to switch line items. So let's say for year 1, you received only emergency shelter dollars, but this year you would like to have a little bit of emergency shelter dollars and a little bit of street outreach. You're able to provide a renewal for a decreased a renewal for your street emergency shelter amount, and then an expansion for street outreach. So you can move across line items. It's just going to look like an expansion rather than a renewal of that line item. Hopefully that makes sense, and we can talk through that if you need that, or if that's something that you're thinking about. The Funding Performance Committee will make recommended project funding determinations, the total of which will not exceed the community's eligible total. So altogether, once they make determinations on how things will be funded, it will never exceed our full community allocation. So what could happen is a project could be decreased funding and another project increased funding, but it will never exceed our total community allocation from year 1. All right. So the timeline. Right now we are here. We are in the informational session. As I stated, the board is going to approve applications and scoring sheets as of Thursday. The final ones will be posted on the website, and we will make members aware of any changes. I do not expect any, but we will make you aware. On May 1st, project applications are due. On May 3rd, the Funding and Performance Committee will be scoring and making ranking decisions. You will be notified in writing of those recommendations. Appeals process will be open, and the appeals are due by May 8th. We will continue through writing the collaborative application in order to submit on time on May 12th. I know this is a very tight turnaround. The state did not leave me much flexibility in the turnaround either. When this was released, they gave me 22 days to do an entire funding process and apply. So I apologize for how short the application is, but when we go through the application, you'll see it's only 3 questions, so hopefully it's not a big deal for you guys. If you were not a part of the organizational process last year, or something with your board or organization chart has changed, we do require these uploads as part of the submission. All of those information is available on the website. There's some information about appeals process, and like I said, on the website there's an entire appeals document that outlines what's an eligible appeal and what's the process for actually asking for one. So I'm going to pause for just a second and see if there's any questions on the NOFA before we actually go through the application. All right. So now I have pulled up the GWRC application document. So we utilize Good Grants and have for the last, I guess, 2 years. It's been really helpful to help streamline our application process. So when you actually log in, this is what you should see. So you will see here the Year 2 Virginia Homeless Solutions Program, VHSP application. You can hit Start Application. And there's a couple of changes that we made this year. One in particular is to help with the streamlining of it. At this point, you should be able to download a PDF with all of the questions. I also last week sent out to all applicants the Word document, so hopefully that's helpful with drafting your responses. But you are able to download it also from Good Grants. Like I said, the application is super short. So the only thing that you would have to do is select which project type that you're applying for. In particular, it's key to remember that you do have to submit an application for each project type. So if you receive emergency shelter operations and rapid rehousing, you will be submitting 2 project applications. And then in each of those applications, you want to just talk about the project that you are applying for. So we're going to go ahead and do emergency shelter. You'll pick a name. And then this is where you actually talk about whether or not it's a renewal or renewal with an expansion and provide some contact information. On the project budget, you'll see, depending on what you selected as your project type will determine the type of budget questions that come up for you. So we selected emergency shelter. That's why you're seeing the emergency shelter options. You will be able to, all right, so then you'll be able to actually put in your expansions. So if you currently receive $50,000 and you want another $5,000, this is what it would end up looking like, and you would just put it into your actual rows. These match exactly to CAMS. If for some reason you have something in the other process, please make sure that you can add a row to be able to show those amounts and then provide the budget details for anything other that you have added. But majority of folks are only receiving things in these categories. HMIS will be by project as well. So if there's something in the HMIS category that you would like to receive, make sure you put those in there. And then as well as admin. We do require a match documentation for how you plan to match each project funding. Here you would put how much match and from what sources you're going to receive those. If for some reason your project cannot be matched with funding yourself, we are able to match across the community. If you need a waiver to be able to provide that match yourself, please let us know and kind of explain why you think you need that waiver. It's very rare that we do that, but it is something we've done in the past to make sure that people can still be funded. Project narrative. So these are the most questions that you'll answer. I think it's 5. Basically, you're just checking your eligibility that you still meet those basic requirements. For here, you're going to talk about what your household type is. So renewal and expansion, what percentage of your project will go towards households with children and households without children. General description of your project scope. Why you still think that meets a community need and why you need additional dollars if that's what you're asking for. And then if there's anything significant to your leadership, staffing, programming, data, trends, anything that you want us to know about your project from year 1 to year 2, you have space to do that here. Finally, 2 basic questions about whether or not you think you're going to expend all your funding for FY23, the current year, and whether or not you have any unresolved monitoring findings. So super straightforward, say super short. It's a total of 9,000 characters that you have in order to give information to us. And I'm really hoping that we made it as simple as possible. There is only a total of 5 points this year for the scoring sheets. You get 4 points for your community need. So we're going to take your information from your project scope, your community need, and your changes to help us justify what those were. And then you get a point if you are going to have no projects, no giving back of funds, and no findings. So super straightforward. From there, you will be rated and ranked based on priority of funding, and we'll go from there. I'm going to pause here and see if there's any general questions about this funding source. All right. So super short presentation because it's a super short application and a super short timeline. So if there is anything that Erica and I can do to help get you guys to the finish line and get there successfully and stay competitive for funding, please let us know. But we are always here to help, but we're hoping that this process is super easy as we go forward into our renewal year.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate your time.
Yep, thanks, Cindy.